Good day. Welcome to the Musicians' Musings with David Pell. I'll be talking to the various members of the creative community here in lovely Topsail Island, North Carolina. As well, I will discuss how the arts has impacted people's lives and careers. So have a sit down and just see what's shaking here on the island. Welcome and thank you for joining us today. In the studio, I have with me Kurt Alterach and Rich Zimmerman. They're of musicmedic.com, as well as their performers here in the Wilmington region with the Wilmington Big Band, and then also they sub out with other groups. And we'll talk about some of that maybe later. But today I just want to talk about you guys and what you do. Can you give me some background information on how you guys met and how you started?
Sure. Good morning, David.
Good morning.
Well, I guess we met at Fredonia. We went to college together, Rich and I, and we were both studying classical saxophone, and we were at Fredonia for 2 years, and we were playing together, played in a quartet together, and played quite a bit together in college, and kind of got more and more into saxophone together and learning how to be adults together in college, and even in college started to do a little bit of work on saxophones. And that's sort of where we got together, where we met, and then we split up and went our separate ways, and kept in touch. I went to grad school in Mississippi, and taught for a while, and started the business that we're talking about, musicmedic.com, and the Saxophone Pro Shop. And Rich, you were teaching?
I worked in repair for about a year, and then I was teaching in New York, and I lived in New York City up until I moved down to start working with you.
So why did you pick Wilmington out of all the places, since obviously you guys have traveled quite a bit, geography-wise?
Well, that's, I started repairing saxophones. So when we were at Fredonia together, I would buy saxophones on eBay and tear them down, clean them up, and sell them. Mostly not to repair, but just to polish. So I certainly remember some late nights with Rich and in a practice room, polishing saxophones and getting them ready to sell them. And what we did was we started this internet company. Or I started this internet company, and then we could go anywhere we wanted. So. After grad school, we did some research, find out where would be a nice place to live for a musician, where there was a good music scene, where the weather was nice, just really looking for a hip place to live. And because it's an internet business, and because the nature of the saxophone repair business, which is mostly what we did at the time, is that musicians would send their instruments to us, then I figured, we can have the business anywhere. So we narrowed it down to Austin, Texas. We thought about Hawaii, and we thought about Wilmington, and out of them, Wilmington seemed to have the nicest housing market, and it was an affordable place to live, and just a beautiful place. So we decided to come out here and give it a try for a year, and I think that was 6 or 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Right?
2000.
Yeah. And then when I was in Wilmington, Rich and I were keeping in touch, and eventually, it was bound to happen that we get back together and get working together. So Rich said, I want to come down and work with you, and of course, I wanted to have Rich work with us. So
That's great. Well, I'm glad you settled here. The other two options are pretty attractive. I gotta tell you.
Yeah.
Hawaii would be nice.
Yeah, that would. Even Austin, because of the music and everything.
Yeah.
Would be nice too, and the armadillos, of course. But well, that's cool. Let's talk about the saxophone. I know you repair them but let's just talk about the history of the saxophone and slowly move our way into the maintenance of it. You guys have brought in quite a bit of tonnage here, this instrument-wise. So just tell us about it and what you brought in.
Sure. Well, let's start with the beginning here. Thanks, Rich. So the saxophone was you get me on my dates, but I think it was 1841 when the saxophone patent was patented, and of course Adolph Sax invented the saxophone and built them in his factory. Now this saxophone that I have is possibly one of the most unique instruments that I've ever had in my shop, and I just happen to have it now while we're doing this, so I thought I would bring it in and show you. This is an original Adolph saxophone that was made in the Adolph Sax factory. So Adolph Sax actually had his hands on this instrument and built this instrument over a mandrel. It's fascinating for me to get my hands on it. I picked this up about 8 months ago on a trip in Europe, and I drove to Basel, and I picked this up from Karina Rascher, who asked me to take it and restore it for her, so that I'm not sure what she'll do with it once it's restored, but she asked that we restore it. And this saxophone has a really interesting history. It's worth telling you the history of it.
Okay, sure.
So I'll try to make this story quick, David, but I'm sort of a long-winded guy. Here's how this saxophone came to be. There's a guy named Gus Busher, and he's anyone who plays a brass instrument or a woodwind knows the name Busher,
Right.
the big factory in the U.S. Some people might not know that Gus Busher worked for Kahn before he opened his own factory. So at one point, Gus Busher went to Europe, and he played various instruments, and I believe that this story is all hearsay. So this is the story that has just been handed down.
Okay.
There's really no written information about this that I know of, and I'm gathering information before we start the restoration. So Gus Busher went to Europe, and he played various saxophones, and he found a saxophone that he particularly liked the sound of, and it's saxophone number 36, which is possibly the 36th instrument that was ever, the 36th saxophone that was ever made. So he brought this instrument back, the story goes, back to the U.S., and he showed it to Kahn, and he said, I want to use this saxophone, number 36, in the design of our new saxophone line. And Kahn had his own ideas, and he said, no, he didn't want to do that, so I'd like to think that he left Kahn because of number 36, but I'm not sure. So he went and he broke off on his own from Kahn, the very famous U.S. instrument making company, C.G. Kahn, and he opened up the Busher Band Instrument Company. And then he used, apparently, number 36 as the prototype for all of the Busher saxophones that he was making at the time. He liked the bore design, and he changed some things, of course, but so now sort of move forward, and Sigurd Rascher, who is maybe the founder of classical saxophone, he played a Busher, and he was well known for playing Bushers, and he did a lot of promotion for Bushers, and as far as I know, he didn't get any money for that. So at some point, the Busher factory, as a thank you to him, they gave him number 36, which is of course, a wonderful gift.
Wow.
Yeah. So Mr. Rascher passed away, and then the instrument went to his daughter, Karina, who's the famous soprano player from the Rascher Saxophone Quartet. And then Karina, so we've done, in the Pro Shop, we've done work on Mr. Rascher's saxophone, and then we also overhauled Karina's soprano. And apparently she liked the work that we did, and she, like I say, she called me up and she said, I have this saxophone, number 36, the prototype for the Bushers, and I'd like for you to restore it. So this instrument is that instrument. This is the instrument that the famous Busher Band Instrument Company used as their prototype for their instruments. And then some interesting things about it, for the saxophonists out there. One, it only goes down to low B. So where this instrument has one extra tone hole, it goes down to low B flat. Some baritones go to low A.
Right.
This one only goes to low B.
Okay.
One interesting thing that I was surprised by is that it goes up to high F. A lot of the older instruments don't go up; they only go up to E flat. So this one has an E and a high F.
Wow.
See, it has no pearls. The tone holes are soldered on. There's a lot of work that'll have to be done to this instrument, but
So at the time this was constructed, there was only 36 saxophones
I'm not,
in the world, or just 36 saxophones made by that particular manufacturer?
No, Adolph Sax is the inventor of the
So
saxophone.
this may be...
He patented the saxophone when he made it, and he was the only one making them. And this instrument on the bell you see that it says number 36.
Okay.
And underneath that it says 1859. So number 36 leads us to believe, with really very little research, that this
Right.
is number 36.
Wow.
And I was told it's number 36, but I have my doubts. And then the 1859 leads me to believe that it may not actually be the 36th saxophone, because if the patent was in the early 40s,
Yeah.
it's very possible that over that much time he would have made more than 36 saxophones. But certainly this is a very old and original saxophone.
We need to have you come back after you've done more research and restored this, so we can see a before and after
That would be
story.
great.
That would be
Yeah.
really nice, since
Yeah.
there's some questions, but still, it's amazing. It's from the 1800s, though,
It is
for sure.
It
And
is,
the
yeah.
man himself touched it and built this.
Yeah.
He and his team.
Yeah, yeah, and before jazz.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. You keep talking about classical sax, and when we get to the performance area, we'll talk about that. But on saxophones, you always see a lot of artwork, a lot of metal etching on these. Some of them, not all of them. Does that impact the sound, the tone, the playability of the instrument, or is that just to make it look pretty?
Every question that you ask about what affects the sound of the instrument is it just depends. You could ask Rich, and you could ask me, and we may have different answers, and then
Right.
you could have your own answer.
Okay.
The question of whether it's silver or whether it's bare brass, you know, that I can say with relative assurance that whatever you engrave on the bell won't affect the sound.
Okay.
But sometimes it affects the value.
Definitely. I can see that a more artsy piece would be more attractive price-wise
Yeah, and-
than a simple looking instrument.
And certain-
Unless it's something like this, of course.
Yeah, yeah, and certain instrument manufacturers would only put certain engraving on various horns. So like
Right.
Kahn would only put extensive engraving on their gold-plated horns. So back in the day, all the instruments were all hand engraved.
Okay.
So each instrument was in an artist's hands, and they would actually engrave the
Amazing.
flowers. Now it's mostly done with lasers and that. And last year we went to the Selmer factory and we worked with them, and we got to see their laser. They've switched to all laser engraving.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Precise and consistent.
Yeah.
Doing that. So this is an alto sax, is that correct?
This is an alto sax in
Okay.
E flat. Yep.
In E flat. And this is an alto sax that you have.
This is also
It's also an E flat,
this is a modern alto.
and it has
This is down to low B flat.
it's got extra keys, so as you were describing there.
Yeah, you see the difference in the bell. So this is a Selmer, very close to this factory. These
Right.
What year is that, Rich?
I think it's like 1932.
Really? It's gorgeous. It's amazing. If you take care of it, you have something to take care of. So and that's what you guys do to help people keep playing their instrument that they've, particularly a professional player, once they find that instrument has that tone they love, they want to play it the rest of their lives. you
Yeah,
know.
absolutely.
So you guys are in the business of helping all players accomplish that. So is this? So we've talked about the alto. You've got some other things here. Let's talk about that, and you can talk about the instrument as well as just talk about some maintenance and see what we got here. I know.
Okay. You know, coming up through the time here, this instrument, this is my baritone that I play, and so this is a Kahn, right? And I said that Busher was working for
Right,
the Kahn, so
right.
so this is a Kahn from the 50s, a Kahn baritone. It's called the Naked Lady because it has a bust of a woman on it, engraved on the bell, right? Which maybe doesn't affect the way it plays, so this is a Kahn baritone from the 50s, and it's the interesting thing that I find, or we find, I think, about these instruments is that they really haven't changed much. You know, the saxophone is so young.
Mm-hmm.
It's fascinating. If you go on Google and you search for saxophone innovation, most of the information you'll find is from the 40s. Because that's when when this company, Kahn and Busher, when they were doing their thing, that's when really a lot of the innovation was happening. And as of late, there's less. So I can show you one of the newest saxophones.
Well, let me ask a question about this one.
Sure.
Now, was this possibly constructed when Busher was still with Kahn or after he left Kahn?
This would be after he left.
Okay, so this is after.
Yeah.
Busher.
And this
Okay.
instrument is about 10 years younger than the Kahn, the same instrument that Jerry Mulligan played. So,
Okay.
So Mulligan played an instrument much this
Very
same-
famous jazz saxophonist.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or as a saxophone friend of mine told me, saxophonist. so
And then I guess coming up through the time here, we have this. This is a step back. I guess this was a. What did we decide this was? A 1920s instrument,
Mid-20s.
mid-20s that we restored.
Soprano sax.
This is a soprano sax,
Okay.
and then here is a more modern. So this is from maybe 2000,
Right.
and this is a sopranino saxophone. So
Okay.
this is in B flat. This is pitched in E flat.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, on the soprano sax, before you put that away,
Okay.
a lot of times you'll see the same saxophone, but it looks like a baby saxophone. That's still a soprano sax, right? I'm talking about the metal ones. I'm talking about
The
'cause
one
you-
that's
you see,
curved.
yeah, you see some of the jazz players. They're playing what looks like a baby saxophone, but it's really a soprano sax, right?
Yeah. They
But
take-
it just looks like what he's holding, except it's just
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's the scale to play the way this one's played straight.
Absolutely. And they even make the one that Rich is holding, the tenor, they even make a straight tenor. So, they have it
That's
where,
interesting.
and all it is that they take this part here, and that spot right there is right here on the saxophone.
Mhm.
And you can actually, you could cut this and take this section out and bend it, and then put this on the end, and you would
Right.
have a curved
Okay.
saxophone, right?
Now, but with a tenor, a straight tenor, seems like that would almost be like the rock and roll version, because you'd have to, like the guitar players, they have their straps where they got to play like
Yeah,
this.
you have to
The
play-
tenor, a straight tenor, you'd be reaching down for those low keys.
You do
Right.
have to reach down, but they also you can extend. The keys are somewhat extended to make it work in your fingers.
Okay.
Yeah, and like they all are, like the
Okay.
the.
Okay, because I know mathematically, those holes have to be placed in a certain place to play a tune.
Yeah,
Correct for the keys and everything.
absolutely. But where you push your button. See, here's a
Right.
tone hole, and then the button you push is way up here.
Okay.
So they could put this tone hole up here
Okay.
or anywhere as long as they can get
Okay.
it to your fingers.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and that. Before we get into that crazy thing, so that and you can see that here on the bass.
Okay. This is the bass sax.
This is a bass, and
It-
I don't have my neck strap right handy, but on the bass, you see,
Right.
you have one hand here, and you have one hand here,
Right.
but you're operating all these keys.
and most people know this saxophone from the cartoons.
Yeah, and
Because you can get, it really goes down there and it has an amazing tone.
yeah, and this is an old con as well. This is a con that's a little older than that baritone that I just showed
Well,
you.
you mind doing something for me? I love this sound. Can you mind just doing the keys and getting that clunking sound? I love that.
Hopefully, it's not too clunky, David.
But you can hear all the pitches. That's just amazing to me. You know, just by doing that mechanical move, you're not even blowing into it, and you get this music and these. You can do a lot with that from a percussion standpoint.
That's an interesting thing that you just mentioned, because if we talk about maintenance, a lot of times the way that you would check it's very important that the saxophone not leak.
Right.
So the old school way to check might be to take and blow cigarette smoke into it and close the keys and then look where the cigarette smoke is coming out of the tone holes, right? But nowadays we have these leak lights. So we drop a light inside and we go in a dark room, and in our shop we have a really neat setup for that with a dark room. And we have mirrors on all the walls so you can see from every angle the light. But at the end of the day, the best way to tell whether an instrument is leaking and
And this is leaking air, which makes it not play properly.
right, if one of the tone holes, see, these are tone holes that are cut into the body, and this is a leather pad that sits on top of the tone hole, and the pad, if I can get it to close, the pad is going to seal on the tone hole. If
Right.
it doesn't seal, then it won't play well. But even better than a leak light and even better than smoke is just to listen. So this is something that we do in our shop. Sometimes we don't see many leaks, and then we listen, and it looks kind of funny to see it. I don't know if you can. I gotta kneel down to do this, but you can just put your ear up to the neck here, and it might be interesting if you put that microphone up to there, David. I wonder if that would work.
I'm going to push in the air. It's kind of cool. I can dig that.
You hear that?
Yeah, man, that's
So,
really neat.
when it's not leaking, it sounds when it's really working well, it sounds like an underwater instrument. In other words, each tone is like bloom, 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 with a real resonance. And when it is leaking, it sounds like a percussion instrument. In fact, well, it would be hard to get, but if you prop a key open, you can hear it, and it would just sound like percussion, like with a little pitch, boom, 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 boom,
Right,
boom,
right,
boom,
right,
boom, right? But when it's not leaking, it has this big, beautiful resonance. And sometimes we think, oh, this instrument is just set up perfect, and before we go to play it, of course, we're listening to it and we're checking, and then when you get to a spot, you say, hey, that doesn't have a good sound there, and we find out that one of the joints on the body is leaking, or some place that you couldn't see with a leak light. So any player should always be just literally putting the neck into your ear, and then listening to the pitches as you tap down the instrument.
Very cool. So what
Can we
else?
talk to them about the new?
Yeah,
So here's-
what is this?
So here's the newest. This may be one of the newest saxophones that we have in the shop. One thing that we do in the pro shop, because more than fixed saxophones, we're restoring instruments, and we're improving them. In a lot of ways, we've been told, various people have said that what we do isn't repair. It's like a remanufacture. So if the manufacturer made some mistake when they put a tone hole in the wrong place, or it's the wrong size, then we fix it. So from that, we've found a lot of problems. So we get various manufacturers will call us and say, can you take our instrument and make your improvements to it, and then let us work with you.
Right.
So we'll do that, and we'll work with them, and this is one example of that. So this is a plastic saxophone that's being made in Thailand right now.
Okay.
And the owner of this company's name, I probably mispronounce it, it's Piapat. Piapat, I've worked with him on this design of this instrument. So this instrument is, well, it's a plastic saxophone, and the most interesting thing is just how light it is.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's nothing to that.
It's basically weightless.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I'm pushing him to make a baritone for kids. So,
Oh, yeah.
because they're so heavy on the neck. But there's some really interesting things about this. One is that the body is in various sections. So
Right.
it's all molded from plastic, and it's in various sections. It can't get dented because it's plastic. It's flexible, right? Because it's
Right.
plastic. The neck.
It's not your normal PVC.
No, this
Pipe.
this is their student model, so it's pretty close. It's a polycarbonate, but they make them out of some other types of plastics. But it's got some unique stuff. The octave key on the neck is recessed in there, so it can't get damaged. I think that this particular instrument still has a long way to go in its design, but it's got some cool things. It's got O-rings to seal the neck, where on a brass instrument we're constantly working to get this seal here. And like I said, leaks are real
That's normally
important.
cork.
Actually, it's normally just metal, two metal bands that.
Oh, okay.
So-
I was thinking of the wrong place. I was thinking about the mouthpiece.
So this
But yeah,
is a
right.
that's a
right,
metal
right.
tenon, and then and this is a metal receiver, and they have to just mate up perfectly. So I think we probably have about $1,500 worth of tools to make this work, right? But here, you just change the O-rings.
Right.
Just snap those off and change them. So,
Right.
so this instrument has this is a neat new instrument. And then as far as making the pads work, I don't know if I can show you this, but watch this. So when we do a saxophone, we probably spend 16 hours making the pads level and seal.
Okay.
But this one, the pads, they spin,
Right.
so there's no setup on the pads, and then you can actually
Just pop them off.
you can pop them off, just
Amazing.
like that, right? So if for any reason you needed a new pad, a kid could just pop it off. I say that, but
Yeah.
it has a little bit of work. It still needs.
Yeah, you
but,
still need adult supervision to make it happen.
Maybe not eventually.
Yeah.
But there it is, and
And that's actually pretty cool.
it just snaps right back
Yeah,
in.
compared to what you're used to seeing with the metal bodies and the pads and everything. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, they did some really neat stuff with it. They didn't try to make it a pro horn. I mean,
Right.
it's mostly just plastic hitting plastic.
So the plastic saxophone that Charlie Parker, the famous jazz saxophonist, recorded some records with, what's the difference between that plastic sax and this one? Since this has newer technology, what's the old technology of a plastic saxophone?
That's an acrylic body, and I believe it's acrylic, and all the keys are brass.
Okay.
So
So it's like a combination of metal and
yeah,
plastic.
and that's a tough thing to work with. This is a tough thing to work with too.
Right.
But this instrument has mostly all plastic, although there's some metal on the keys. And, in our redesign of it, what we've done is like here on these keys, and all this mechanism back
Right.
here. There's 29 parts right here.
Wow.
So we redesigned it for him, and now it has 4 parts. So it can be quickly assembled in the factory, and we've got rid of all this stuff so that it's very simple with just 4 parts.
Okay, so I know we'll have band directors and parents going to be calling up and asking, when is this
Where-
available,
where
and where can
I
they get one?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, we're discussing with him some U.S. distribution for the instrument, but
So it's not really available in the United States at the moment.
not so much. I think the retail on it is about $400, and I know that he's made a lot of improvements to it since this
Right.
model.
Right.
So I think he's going to keep going with that.
Yeah, that's exciting from the school standpoint and from the student standpoint. So I'd love to have you come back when we have more things as far as updates goes on this and how your registration and all that
Yeah,
goes. Yeah, that's
yeah,
great.
absolutely.
So it's still an alto. We've been bass sax, bari sax, alto sax, and we had tenor that we were looking at for a little bit, and the
what-
sopranos.
So what else?
I think we've covered all the saxes,
I
right?
think, well, there's one more. We talked about
We
the
did talk about
soprano.
that guy.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so for you at musicmedic.com, now do you deal mostly exclusively with professionals and manufacturers, or are you open just to the general public? Say if a local player wanted to have their instrument repaired or examined by you guys, can you tell me more about the business
Sure.
in that respect?
Well, we're in the saxophone pro shop. So when we set out, we were mostly thinking that we would be working for pros. And when I started the repair side of the company, I was planning to work mostly with pros.
Okay.
That's what I was doing, playing saxophone and interested in fixing instruments to a high level with pros.
Okay.
But you know, a fair amount of our work comes from students, young college students, high school students. We're working on a sophomore in college, or a sophomore in high school's instrument right now. And it's interesting, David, that probably, maybe like guitar, the better the instrument plays, the less work the student has to do.
Right.
So there's
Absolutely.
there's some theories out there that I just disagree with. And one is that a pro player can blow through anything, and that he doesn't need an instrument to work well, that he can just get through it, and that the student is the one who needs the instrument to work better. I disagree with that because I think the pro players tend to be more sensitive, and the music that they're playing is more challenging, so they actually need the instrument to play very, very well. Another theory is that students are going to bang their instrument around, that their instruments don't need to play well, or can be sort of out of adjustment. But really, if an instrument is the work that we do a lot of tuning work, and we do a lot of work with the tone of the instrument, and I'm sure that we've every saxophonist works in the practice room and works to get things to happen, like playing low notes on the saxophone are traditionally very hard to do. But when an instrument plays well, it's very simple to play the low notes. It's as easy on a saxophone as it is on a clarinet to play low notes. So because of the amount of time that we spend, normally the work that we do, and to compare it with, if you took an instrument, a saxophone, to a shop, maybe you would pay $400, and it would take 2 days for them to do an overhaul on it. So we're maybe 3 or 4 times the cost, but we're maybe 6 or 7 times the time. So we spend about 3.5 weeks meticulously going over every single section of this instrument, and then playing it and tuning it and making it play with a good tone. And I guess I would say we pioneer that in a way.
Yeah, there's no one else.
You're trying to get maximum performance out of every instrument, regardless of where it falls in the price range of instruments.
It doesn't matter what it costs, and it
Right.
certainly doesn't matter who's playing it.
Right.
We actually set up our shop in such a way that the technicians are not even aware of who the instrument belongs to, and they certainly don't care about the value. Most of the instruments we play are undervalued. This instrument here that we overhauled, the soprano, I bought that instrument, I don't even think it's worth. I think in its broke down shape, this is probably worth $100.
Right.
And we did about $1,500 or $1,800 worth of work to it. But now it plays like a $4,000 instrument.
Okay.
So this is how it works. It's interesting with saxophone because unlike the violin or something, they're so young
Right.
that they haven't matured to where there's a bunch of instruments out there that play wonderfully, but they can be had very inexpensively.
Right.
And then with some really great work, they really play well. And then anyone that plays, and no matter what kind of music or age group, it would appreciate that good work.
Well, I think you brought up a good point about if the instrument plays well, then it encourages people, it motivates them. From a student's perspective and from a professional standpoint, it lets them find whatever it is they're hearing and be able to project it out of their instrument, whatever that note is or that tone that they're shooting for. Because with you guys, depending on how you do your lips, your armature, and your fingers, how you do that on the keys, all that creates different sounds. That's why you have David Sanborn the way he is, and Boots Randolph has his tone, and the classical saxophones have another tone, and everybody's unique that way. So I think I think you hit on something there. I think the instrument has to play its best it can be, no matter where you are skill level wise, because then it encourages you and motivates you to play.
Absolutely,
make music.
yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Well, let's do this. Let's go to a commercial break, and when we come back, let's hear some saxophones. Hear you guys play. I'm looking forward to that.
All right.
Cool.
Thank you so much, man. This is great.
Thanks, David.
We just came up with the idea that, hey, let's just run 50 miles. And how that came to be, I honestly don't know.
And heard about Izzy O'Brien and how he died. And I heard from one of his friends. I didn't read about it in the newspaper, didn't see it on the news or anything. Got no coverage at all. And I was like, well, this is wrong. It's one of our heroes. We need to pay tribute to him.
Story, you know, newlywed, 9-month-old son, 24 years old, passing away in Iraq, and I was just, that's when it hit me like, yeah, this is it. This has to be it.
It clicked, just happened.
When I stand, when I fall, does anyone care at all? When I stand, when I fall, does anyone care at all? When I stand, when I fall, does anyone know that I'm a hero?
All we had to do was say, Izzy.
Because I know that he would have done this for me without even thinking about it. If the same situation would have happened to me, I guarantee he would have been there for me with the drop of a hat.
Spread my wings.
I think what PJ did almost goes beyond your imagination.
I don't know if I'll ever be a part of anything greater than that. The power of good people doing good things, the miracle of what the human body can achieve when inspired by a righteous cause.
Welcome back, and now we're going to get to hear these guys play. What's really cool, you're going to do some, I heard you guys do this a while back, and this blew me away. So this is classical saxophone you're getting ready to play, is that right?
Yeah.
Instead of jazz saxophone like most people think about. So that you have a different tone, and of course the compositions and arrangement are different. But to me, it sounds like a cello and a viola playing together. So it's absolutely gorgeous. I love this. So can you tell me anything about what you're doing?
Yeah.
And about the instruments you're playing that we're getting ready to listen to? Go ahead, Rich. We'll let you talk this time. How's that?
Well, we decided that we were going to go and play a series of duets, and these are not full duets, but they're all Baroque music, and we are going to play. Normally, these duets are made for two like instruments, but these are. So we're playing two like instruments. They're pitched the same. These are both E flat, but they're an octave apart.
Okay.
So if Kurt plays a low B flat.
Can we do that?
Yeah, do it.
Let's go for it.
And then I play a low B flat. You can hear that they're an octave apart.
Play them together, see what that sounds like. Okay, and of course you have to kind of go up a little bit. Cool, I like that. Well, let's go. Let's give a listen to this duet.
All right. So this is a Telemann duet.
Very nice. That was really cool. So do you have another composition?
Yeah, we have.
Some with lower register?
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
I heard y'all do some stuff that was in lower register. It's absolutely gorgeous. That was very nice. So so this is Baroque music. This is back the 1700s?
Late 17, mid 1700s, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But way before the saxophone.
before the saxophone, yes.
So that may have been written for what you think?
Flute. I think
For
that.
flute?
I believe that was a flute.
Originally
duet.
written for
Yeah.
flutes. So that's really cool to hear that on these instruments instead. So now we got the bass sax, okay, and the soprano sax. This is going to be cool. So you're doing a similar composition.
Can we blow a note on here, David?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's hear the difference.
Do you
So,
wanna yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, no.
So now we're playing two like instruments. These are pitched in B flat, but we're 2 octaves apart.
2 octaves apart.
So if you play your low B flat,
And that's your lowest note on that.
yeah.
They play together and just hear that together. Oh, you just gotta love that. That's gonna be a lot of fun. Okay, so let's hear this.
Ready?
So different than what you're used to hearing on the radio or at marching band camp. That's great, man.
So that's soprano and bass, and
So that's like from the top to the bottom.
now,
Well, almost. As far as saxophone goes, except for that new instrument that you were talking about.
And there's even one higher called the soprano, which is an octave higher than this, but that's for the
I-
most part.
I think for today we're pretty
And there's
good.
a contrabass as well, but
Oh man,
but you know,
physically even
It's
bigger
early.
than this thing. Yeah, oh, man. Well, that was great. So you want to do another piece with tenor?
Yeah.
Let's do that. And we'll close with this.
okay.
So I know before you played that particular tune, both of y'all were kind of playing notes. Were you doing that just to kind of get the air through the horn as well as make sure you're in tune? Before you started composition, y'all were kind of honking around there for a little bit.
Just to warm up. Yeah.
Sure
just,
the reed's working.
Make
Right,
sure the
right,
reed's
right.
wet and-
Well, I want people to know because some people don't understand that you guys have a routine you need to go through to be able to play your instruments. So when you hear the orchestra or whatever, the band warming up, that's what you guys are doing is trying to make sure everything's operating, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's good. So you just picked it up off the stand. You're just wanting to make sure it works before you kick into the tune. Cool. Let's hear this next composition.
You're doing this. Yeah.
Sure.
So this one, David, is an English carol that Greensleeves.
Amazing. Well, thank you for coming in. That was great.
Thank
and
you,
I
David.
look forward to getting you back for an update so we can see what's going on with all the various things we've talked about that you had works in progress.
Thank you, David.
Thank you so much. Really
Thanks,
appreciate
David.
you guys coming in.
All right.
If you want to get these guys, go to musicmedic.com. As Rich is also for hire from when he's not playing with the Wilmington Big Band or repairing instruments. You can get him as well, or you guys as a duet. I know you go out and play as well. So either way, you can contact them. And I know we had some graphics up, so you can get the contact information. But thank you for coming in.
Thanks, David.
Thank
Thank you.
We just came up with the idea that, hey, let's just run 50 miles. And how that came to be, I honestly don't know.
And heard about Izzy O'Brien and how he died. And I heard from one of his friends. I didn't read about it in the newspaper, didn't see it on the news or anything. Got no coverage at all. And I was like, well, this is wrong. It's one of our heroes. We need to pay tribute to him.
In me is a hero waiting to rise. In me is a hero waiting to fly. Back down, no way, no how. I'm gonna stand 10 feet tall.
And Mike told me the story, you know, newlywed, 9-month-old son, 24 years old, passing away in Iraq, and I was just, that's when it hit me like, yeah, this is it. This has to be it.
It clicked, just happened.
Will I stand? Will I fall? Is anyone here at all? Will I stand? Will I fall? Is anyone here at all? Will I stand? Will I fall? Does anyone know that I'm a hero? I'm a hero.
All we had to do was say, is it?
Because I know that he would have done this for me without even thinking about it. If the same situation would have happened to me, I guarantee he would have been there for me at the drop of a hat.
Spread my wings. I'm a hero.
I think what PJ did almost it goes beyond your imagination.
I don't know if I'll ever be a part of anything greater than that. The power of good people doing good things, the miracle of what the human body can achieve when inspired by a righteous cause.
Welcome back. Now we're just talk about a little bit of guitar. I'm gonna play a little composition for you. It's in open tuning, and talk about this concept of playing guitar. I love this way of playing guitar. It uses open strings, a lot of hammer-ons and pull-offs, and some other things. So let me just play through it, and then we can go into more detail about this. Okay, so that's a hymn farther along, and basically this is an open tuning for you guitar players out there. It's F, A, D, G, C, and E. And what I always teach my students whenever we do open tunings is you should always have several strings in standard pitch, and then you should tune all the other strings that you're altering down. So that way you're not doing a lot of stress on the guitar. Now, of course, I've broken the rule because I have the low E up to an F and the B up to a C, but I've only gone 1 fret, so I haven't gone crazy like some people I've run into where they may pitch up all the way up to a minor third or even up a fifth sometimes, 1 string or a collection of strings in their open tunings. If you feel like you have to have a tuning that requires the higher pitches, just get a capo and then put the capo to wherever the most common notes are and then tune the other strings down to give you the tuning you want. There's also something called a third hand capo you can get if you want to do that. The advantage of having any open tuning is you still get your harmonics in your normal places at the 12th and 5th and 7th frets. Now what's nice about this arrangement is, for one thing, because of the tuning, it opens up where I can get this koto type sound, Japanese instrument sound, the intro. And then it goes into the nice part of the guitar where we use hammer-ons and pull-offs and get that nice sound there. And because it's an open tuning, I can have strings ringing where I'm playing. Then this, when I go to that lick, that's sort of simulating a dobro sound. More hammer-ons, pull-offs. Then we have this nice little transition where we walk up to the D chord to get that, to the G chord. Again, those hammer-ons, pull-offs, sort of the dobro lick. And also, whenever you do open tunings, obviously I'm playing chord shapes that don't look normal, because if I was going to play a C chord, it looks like that. If I'm playing an F chord, and if I want that top note, I have that there. And if I play a C chord, it looks like this. A D chord, which is using this, is here, and then a G chord. Now, if I go too far, I get that sound, I get the suspended 4 sound. So, basically that's what we're looking at chord-wise and what you can do with that. The other thing that I did in here was now that's basically, a pedal steel or piano kind of lick where you play like a scale and a chord together and you let it all ring out. Now, what I did at the end was with the harmonics like this. The classical players used that technique, but a North Carolina guitar player, Tal Farlow, a jazz guitar star, ended up using this technique and taking solos where he would was doing this and making it all part of this. So I'm using that technique. You hear Merle Travis, Chet Atkins, Lingy Bro, you can just name a whole bunch of players out there. They're using this technique. Tal Farlow kind of made it work on the electric guitar, make it more modern where everybody picked it up. Now, if you notice, what I'm doing is I'm just plucking 12 frets right above whatever is happening over here with this hand. So that's how I'm able to get these notes that I'm fretting, and then obviously the 12th fret for the open strings. And then I come over here and I get the last 2 harmonics because it's pleasing to the ear. And if you learn your instrument and learn where all these harmonics are, because they happen all up and down the neck, I could have played those harmonics right there, right here, but since I'm holding this chord, it's kind of hard to get the finger over to do that. And also, I didn't want to reach over and try to do it that way physically with my picking hand. It's just easier for me to do this and grab all this stuff. And plus, the audience really likes it when you do that too, because it looks like it's all right there. So visually, it's also a nice, entertaining bang for the buck. The open tuning, let's just talk about that for just a second. There's going to be a lot of people who want to know what that's called, what type of tuning that is, and there can be a lot of argument over what that could be called. I think most people may call this an F6-9 major 7 tuning because of the F, A, D, G, C, E. So this part is the major part of the chord. There's the 6, there's the 9 in F. There's the 5th, so that's the major chord itself, and then this E is the major 7. So that's the sound you get there. So if I just played this part, that's one sound. If I play this part, it's another sound. And I tend to think of this as a polychord more in that this is a F6 or a D minor chord with an F bass underneath C major chord, which is what this is, G, C, E. And of course, everybody can argue about that, but if I play this bass note and that's an A minor, 7 chord. So you can go through a lot of different things if you want to call this tuning, but just to let you know what that sounds like. And also the other advantage, anytime you can play a guitar and have strings ringing, so my hand, I wasn't fretting the lower frequencies, the lower notes, but this upper part was ringing, so it lets it sound smoother when I do get there and play those notes. Also, harmonically speaking, if I'm playing something like when I was doing the auto harp part, trying to make the guitar sound like an auto harp, because of the open tuning makes that technique easier. And basically, all I'm doing is the same thing as this, where 12 frets up, except I'm holding the pick in such a way where the flesh of the thumb is now grabbing the strings, so I can play a whole chord, and that's how I'm able to, or any of us guitar players are able to get that kind of auto harp sound. So, basically that's just an open tuning thing and some of the different options and advantages of playing with open tunings and different techniques. So, thanks for joining us today. Just remember, don't confuse a deep groove with a rut, and just go out and see what today can be.